Tonight, 8 Senate Democrats have joined the Republicans in voting for a deal that will reopen the government. The deal funds the government until January, reverses the firings that took place during the shutdown, funds SNAP, and guarantees a vote in December on the ACA, meaning this is very much a stopgap solution that, at a bare minimum, ensures 42 million Americans get food who need it. I have a lot of thoughts about this deal. First off, let's take into account the fact that Democrats just won everything on Tuesday's election. An election where the majority of Americans blamed Donald Trump for the shutdown, including independents blaming Trump by a 2-1 margin. Trump himself conceded that the losses were the result of the shutdown when he posted, quote, "Trump wasn't on the ballot and shutdown were the two reasons that Republicans lost elections tonight." In other words, Democrats had political cover, the American people blamed the Republicans for the shutdown, Republicans, including Trump, knew that the shutdown was their fault, and Americans voted overwhelmingly across the country for Democrats amid that Republican-led shutdown. And against the backdrop of all of that, Democrats decided that what they needed to do was cave to the Republicans and reopen the government. I don't think you have to be a political mastermind to understand why many of us are perplexed. Second, Democrats claim that they were taking on this fight because they wanted to protect the ACA and prevent healthcare costs for 24 million Americans from doubling, tripling, quadrupling, or more. They didn't get a deal, meaning they caved on their principal objective. Yes, there's going to be a vote on the ACA in December, but that's just a vote. It needs 60 votes in the Senate to pass. That means that 13 Republicans have to vote for it. That's not going to happen, meaning whereas Democrats could have gotten a guarantee to fund the ACA by using this as leverage, they just got a doomed vote to fund the ACA later. That's a loss. Third, this hurts Democrats in future negotiations. If you're a Republican and you just watch Democrats cave on their principal objective, are you that worried that the next time they demand something, after a little bit of time, they're not just going to relent on that too? The Democrats just showed Republicans that they are not willing to go to the mat in any future negotiations. Let's not pretend that the GOP is going to forget that. Fourth, think about the message you just sent to the Democratic base, a base that thought that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Maybe a party plagued by accusations of being weak and feckless and impotent has finally learned their lesson and learned how to fight. And yet now, here we are, capitulating while the wind was at our backs. What lesson do you think that tells the Democratic base as we head toward midterms? How do you expect to raise enthusiasm when, in the one instance you had to use some leverage and take a virtuous and popular stand to protect healthcare, an issue that 80% of Americans agree with you on, you decide to cave? We need to get people excited about what a Democratic Party can do. This move accomplishes the polar opposite. Now, with all of that said, in fairness, it's not all bad. The government employee firings, called reductions in force, have been reversed. SNAP is funded and 42 million Americans won't go hungry. Let's not pretend that that is not a massive win. There will be an ACA vote in December, which means that the Republicans will at least have to go on record voting to allow healthcare premiums to surge or not. And if they do vote against it, which they likely will, then they're going to own the fallout if and when those prices skyrocket. The House is also going to be in session now, which means that Adelita Grijalva is going to be sworn in and she'll serve as the 218th vote on the discharge petition to force a vote on the Epstein files. The Republicans will have to go on record for that vote as well. But the biggest silver lining is that we have an opportunity to look at what the Democratic candidates running for office in 2026 are saying, and it represents a much different party than the one we have right now. It represents people who know how to fight and are willing to use any tools at their disposal to do it. The reality is that we're not going to fix the Democrats' brand by these officials doing TikToks or launching podcasts in their offices, although I will concede that it is certainly good that Democrats are embracing independent media. They need to do that. But the brand is a direct reflection on the strength of our elected officials. If we want to purge our weak branding, we have to purge weak Democrats. I'm looking forward to a robust primary cycle and ushering in a new era of Democrats who actually know how to fight. And here's what a few of those Democrats are saying right now. Michigan's Mallory McMorrow said, "This is a bad deal and the old way of doing things is clearly not working." Michigan's Abdul El-Sayed said, "A promise is only as good as the trust you have in the folks making the promise or the leverage they have to break it." After all this, are folks really about to give up their leverage against MAGA senators we know we can't trust? Maine's Graham Plattner said, "Senate Democrats need to hold the line, no healthcare, no deal. Mainers want a Democratic Party that fights for them, not one that rolls over." Maine's Janet Mills said, "Tens of thousands of Maine people are facing skyrocketing healthcare costs because of Donald Trump and Susan Collins. Maine people deserve affordable health care, not just the promise of a vote that won't go anywhere. Fight back." Texas's James Tallarico said, "This moment demands fighters, not folders." Texas's Colin Allred said, "This deal is a joke that sells out working people and their healthcare. If we don't stand our ground for our people, then who will?" Minnesota's Angie Craig wrote, "If people believe this is a deal, I have a bridge to sell you. I'm not going to put 24 million Americans at risk of losing their healthcare. I'm a no." Minnesota's Peggy Flanagan wrote, "Any deal that relies on Republicans to keep their word is a bad one. Democrats can't give up on affordable healthcare for an empty promise. Minnesotans can't afford for Democrats to cave." Illinois' Juliana Stratton wrote, "I've said it since the start of this shutdown. Republicans do not negotiate in good faith, and any deal that fails to protect healthcare is not a deal at all." Ohio's Sherrod Brown wrote, "500,000 Ohioans are facing monthly premiums that are double or triple what they were paying. This is a bad deal for Ohioans. It does nothing to help the out-of-control costs people are facing. We can't allow healthcare costs to skyrocket and not be willing to fight." Iowa's Josh Turek wrote, "Healthcare is worth fighting for. No protection for healthcare, no deal." Iowa's Zach Walls wrote, "Senator Schumer has failed to lead this party in one of the most critical moments, and Americans will pay the price. It's time for him to step down from leadership and make way for a new generation willing to fight for the people instead of the powerful." And the list goes on. And I know that this moment feels depressing because we have a lot of old guard Democrats who cannot take a win when it's staring them in the face, but the future of this party offers a case for optimism. The answer, then, is not to check out. Remember, it wasn't the entire Democratic caucus who did this. It was 8 centrist Democrats: Tim Kaine, Jeanne Shaheen, John Fetterman, Dick Durbin, Angus King, Jackie Rosen, Catherine Cortez Masto, and Maggie Hassan. The rest have spoken out against this deal, so do not disengage. Fight for something better, and recognize that all of those candidates represent a better future for this party, one that understands the moment we're in and will actually fight to get it. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.